Chosen one, before you go any further, pause and let this truth settle in your spirit. What you are about to hear is not just another motivational message, not another sermon that leaves you inspired for a moment but unchanged afterward. This is different. This is divine revelation. This is the very answer your heart has been searching for, the response to the questions you've whispered in the dark when no one else could hear you. How many nights have you laid awake, staring at the ceiling, asking God why life feels so heavy, why your prayers seem delayed, why your efforts never seem to measure up, why others move forward while you feel stuck? You have tried everything the world told you would bring success. You've worked harder, you've sacrificed, you've pushed yourself to the limit, and yet the emptiness remained. That's because what you needed was never in the world's formula. What you needed was truth, God's truth. And that is what He has led you here to receive today. This word is not ordinary knowledge. It is transformative revelation. It carries the power to shift how you see yourself, how you interpret your struggles, and how you walk into your future. If you receive it, it will reset your perspective, open your eyes to the reality of who you truly are in God, and ignite a fire in your spirit that no storm can extinguish. Let me ask you something. What if the very thing you thought was proof of your failure is actually proof of your calling? What if the rejection you faced, the financial hardships, the repeated setbacks, the seasons of lack that seemed endless, were never meant to destroy you but to reveal you? What if the struggle itself is the evidence that you are chosen? You see, chosen ones are not ordinary. They are marked, set apart, and entrusted with assignments so weighty that heaven itself equips them for the journey. That is why your path has been harder. That is why you've walked through storms that others around you cannot even comprehend. It is not because you are cursed. It is because you are chosen. And the higher the calling, the greater the preparation. God is not preparing you for a life of survival. He is preparing you for a destiny of impact, influence, and overflow. This is why you have been refined in fire, tested in hidden seasons, and pressed on every side. Not because He has abandoned you, but because He is shaping you into a vessel strong enough to carry extraordinary destiny. So don't see this moment as coincidence. You were drawn here, not by accident, but by divine orchestration. Heaven aligned circumstances for you to hear this word right now. And I need you to lean in, because the revelation you are about to receive will not only explain your struggles, it will unlock the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Chosen one, let's confront the question that has haunted you for so long. Why do I struggle so much financially if God has truly chosen me? At first glance, it feels unfair. You've prayed, you've believed, you've worked hard, and yet the breakthrough seems to slip through your fingers. Others who do not even acknowledge God appear to prosper, while you face battles that feel relentless. But hear this, your struggles are not random, and they are certainly not signs of rejection. They are divine evidence that you are chosen. The world will always interpret lack as failure, but heaven sees it differently. What the world calls weakness, God calls preparation. What looks like defeat is often the very soil where destiny is planted. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. To the natural eye, his life looked like one disaster after another. Yet in God's eyes, every setback was a setup for his rise into authority. Without the pit, the prison, and the pain, Joseph could never have stepped into the palace. The same blueprint is written into your story. Financial hardship in your life is not punishment, it is preparation. When you take one step forward and get pushed 2 steps back, it is not because you lack faith. It is because your calling is so weighty that the enemy is terrified of you stepping into it. If you were ordinary, the enemy would not bother with you. But because you are chosen, you are targeted. And the very intensity of your struggle is proof of the magnitude of your assignment. Look at Job. He lost wealth, health, and family in a storm of suffering so severe that few could endure it. Yet Job's trial was not proof of God's rejection, but of God's trust in him. In the end, Job was restored with double what he had lost. Job 42:10. Could it be that your own battles are a job-like season? Could it be that God is testing your endurance, not to destroy you, but to set the stage for restoration far beyond what you imagine? Here is the truth. Chosen ones are refined in fire. Gold does not reveal its true brilliance until it has passed through the furnace. Silver is purified only in the crucible. Proverbs 17:3 says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." Your financial struggles are not curses, they are the furnace where your heart is being tested, purified, and prepared for greater glory. So the next time you look at your empty wallet or the bills stacked against you, refuse to see it as evidence of failure. See it as evidence that you are chosen. See it as proof that God trusts you enough to allow you to be tested, because He is preparing to entrust you with more. Chosen one, let this truth sink deep into your spirit. You were never designed to blend in. The reason you feel different, the reason your journey has been unlike those around you, is because you are set apart by God Himself. You carry a mark that cannot be erased. The world may not always recognize it, but heaven knows it, and hell fears it. The Apostle Peter said it plainly in 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light. That verse is not just poetic language, it is your identity. You are royal, you are holy, and you are precious in the eyes of God. To be chosen is to be separated from ordinary living and positioned for extraordinary destiny. But let me tell you something important. Being chosen does not mean life will be easy. In fact, it usually means the opposite. Chosen ones are refined in fire. They are tested in wilderness seasons. They are hidden away while others are celebrated, trained in silence before they are revealed in light. Your private struggles, your quiet tears, your unseen sacrifices, these are not wasted moments. They are the divine classroom where God is shaping your character. Look at Joseph. He was chosen long before he wore the robe of authority in Egypt. His dreams revealed his calling, but the path to fulfillment took him through betrayal, slavery, and prison. To his brothers, it looked like rejection. To Potiphar's wife, it looked like defeat. But to God, it was training ground. Every setback was preparing Joseph to manage the abundance that would one day save nations. Without the pit, there would be no palace. Without the prison, there would be no promotion. The same is true for you. The rejection you faced, the betrayal you endured, the nights you felt invisible, none of it was punishment. It was preservation. God was keeping you away from the wrong people, the wrong environments, and the wrong timing, so that when He reveals you, no one will be able to deny that it was His hand on your life. Chosen ones often carry sensitivity, empathy, and vision that others cannot understand. They walk into a room and sense the atmosphere. They carry wisdom beyond their years, and sometimes that makes them feel out of place. But remember, you were not created to fit in, you were created to stand out. Think of Esther, an ordinary girl placed in a royal palace, set apart for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. Think of David, a shepherd boy overlooked by men, but chosen by God to be king. These stories remind us that being set apart often means being underestimated. But when God marks you, no man's opinion can erase His decision. So, embrace your difference, chosen one. Stop wishing you could walk the same road as everyone else. Stop comparing your journey. You are set apart because your assignment is set apart. The fire you've endured, the storms you've survived, are shaping you for impact. And when the time comes, your light will shine in ways the world cannot explain. Chosen one, Let's get straight to the heart of the question you've asked so many times. Why am I struggling financially? You've worked hard, prayed hard, and yet it seems like every time you take one step forward, something pushes you 2 steps back. To the natural eye, it looks like failure, but in the spirit, it is far deeper than that. The first truth you must understand is this: your struggle is not a sign of curse, but of calling. Ordinary people live by ordinary systems, but you, chosen one, do not operate by the same blueprint. Your gifts are spiritual in nature, your assignment is eternal in weight, and because of that, the world's systems cannot fully contain you. This tension often shows up in the area of finances. Paul reminds us in 2 Corinthians 10-4, "The weapons of our warfare are not carnal but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds." That means your battle is not just about numbers in a bank account. It's not about a paycheck, a promotion, or an opportunity that slipped away. Your struggle is rooted in a spiritual clash, a battle over whether you will conform to the systems of the world or stand firm in God's economy. The truth is, God allows certain struggles because He is training you. Proverbs 17:3 declares, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." Your financial challenges are not punishment. They are preparation. They refine your motives. They strip away pride. They teach you to trust God's provision over human effort. Without the test, there can be no testimony. Think of Israel in the wilderness. God fed them with manna from heaven, not because He couldn't lead them into the promised land immediately, but because He was teaching them dependence. He was showing them that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Deuteronomy 8:3. Likewise, your struggle is God's way of teaching you that your source is not a job, not a market, not an economy, but Him alone. So, don't misinterpret your season of lack. What you see as a setback may actually be a setup. What feels like delay may be divine development. Your financial struggle is evidence that God is shaping you into someone who can carry abundance without being destroyed by it. Remember this: it's not punishment, it's positioning, and when the refining is complete, the provision will flow. Chosen one, if this is already speaking to your spirit, don't stay silent. Type, "I am chosen," in the comments right now as your declaration of faith. When you comment, you're not just typing words, you are putting your agreement into action. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next word God has prepared for you. Your journey is not just personal, it's prophetic. Chosen one, hear this with clarity. Your financial struggles are not the end of your story, they are the doorway to something greater. The Bible says in Proverbs 13:22, "The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just." This means there is a transfer happening, a shifting of resources from the hands of the unrighteous into the hands of those who walk in covenant with God. And make no mistake, you are one of them. This principle of wealth transfer is not about greed, and it's not about worldly ambition. It's about kingdom purpose. God is not raising you up just to have money for yourself. He is raising you up to become a steward of resources that will build His kingdom. This is why your season of lack has been so intense, because the enemy knows that once you step into financial alignment, you will be unstoppable. Your provision will not just meet your needs, it will overflow into the lives of others. Think of Joseph once again. In Genesis 41, when famine struck, Joseph was placed in charge of Egypt's entire storehouse. His journey through betrayal and prison prepared him to handle abundance wisely. Without that training, he could never have managed the resources that ended up feeding nations. The same is true for you. Your financial hardship is training. God is preparing you to handle more than just survival. He's preparing you to handle overflow with wisdom, humility, and integrity. Wealth transfer is not about flashy lifestyles. It is about divine redistribution. God is repositioning resources So they are no longer in the hands of those who use them for destruction, but in the hands of his chosen, who will use them for light. Deuteronomy 8:18 reminds us, "It is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant." Notice that wealth is tied to covenant. When God blesses you financially, it's not only for your comfort, but for his greater mission on earth. That's why your struggle has been so hard. Because God is not just preparing you to pay bills, he is preparing you to fund visions. You are being trained to carry resources that will establish schools, feed the hungry, send the gospel, and break generational curses of poverty. The enemy tried to convince you that your lack meant rejection, but the truth is, it's preparation for stewardship. So, chosen one, don't despise this season. Don't look at your empty wallet as defeat. Instead, see it as God's classroom. See it as evidence that he trusts you enough to prepare you for more. A shift is coming, and you are part of it. The wealth transfer is not a rumor, it is a reality. And when the door opens, you will step into it not as a slave to money, but as a master steward of God's resources, using every blessing for eternal impact. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why your financial struggles feel so heavy, almost as if they didn't even start with you? That's because in many cases, they didn't. Generational poverty, broken patterns, and cycles of lack are very real. The Bible reveals this in Exodus 34:7, which speaks of the consequences of sin visiting to the third and fourth generation. Trauma, mismanagement, and spiritual strongholds often travel down family lines, showing up as poverty, debt, and financial instability. But here is the greater truth. Just as patterns of brokenness can be passed down, so can patterns of blessing. The same verse also highlights God's mercy, declaring that his steadfast love extends to thousands. That means your story doesn't have to end where your family's story has been stuck. You are not bound to repeat the failures of those before you. You are called to be the breaker of chains, the one God raises to reset the pattern. Think about Moses. For generations, Israel was enslaved in Egypt, bound in a cycle of oppression and poverty. But God raised up one deliverer, one chosen vessel, to lead his people out. That is what God is doing in you. Your financial struggles may feel crushing, but they are not the end. They are the battlefield where generational curses are being confronted and broken once and for all. Science even confirms this reality in its own way. Epigenetics shows us that trauma can affect DNA, carrying down stress responses and patterns from generation to generation. But here's the beauty. If trauma can be inherited, then healing can be inherited too. And that is exactly what God is doing in your bloodline. Through you, chosen one, restoration is being written into your family's DNA. Isaiah 61:3 promises that God will give a crown of beauty instead of ashes, joy instead of mourning, and praise instead of despair. That means you may have inherited ashes, but you are destined to pass down beauty. You may have been handed lack, but you will leave behind abundance. You may have seen cycles of failure, but your children will inherit cycles of blessing. Don't despise the weight you carry. It is the evidence that you are the turning point. The reason your financial struggles have been so fierce is because you are the one chosen to stop the cycle. Where others gave up, you will rise. Where others settled for survival, you will step into overflow. You are not just fighting for yourself, you are fighting for your family, your children, and your children's children. Chosen one, you are the Moses of your lineage, the one anointed to lead your bloodline out of Egypt and into promise. And once the chain is broken through you, it will never be rebuilt. The curse ends here, and the blessing begins with you. Chosen one, here is a truth the enemy doesn't want you to see. Your empty bank account does not define your future. What looks like lack in the natural is often abundance in the spirit. You may feel as though you've been living from paycheck to paycheck, fighting to survive, watching doors close, and wondering if God has forgotten you. But the reality is, heaven has already credited your account. What looks empty on earth is overflowing in eternity. Malachi 3:10 declares, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Do you see what this means? Your blessing is not limited by earthly numbers, but by heaven's floodgates. And when God opens them, no system, no economy, no enemy can shut them. Look at the story of Job. One of the wealthiest men of his time, he lost everything, his wealth, his health, his family. It seemed like devastation beyond repair. But Job remained faithful. And in Job 42:10, the Bible says God restored to him double what he had lost. His end was greater than his beginning. Your story may feel like Job's right now: emptiness, loss, even despair. But God is setting you up for restoration, and not just restoration, but double portion restoration. Your lack is not the final chapter. It is the soil where God is planting seeds of abundance. Romans 5:3-4 reminds us, "We glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." This hope will not disappoint you. Your tribulation is not wasting you, it is shaping you. Your tears are watering the ground where your breakthrough will grow. Chosen one, heaven's economy does not operate on survival, it operates on overflow. 2 Corinthians 9:8 declares, "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work." Notice the words, abundantly, all things, at all times. That is the language of overflow. So lift your eyes. Do not measure your worth by what you see in your wallet or in your account. God is moving you from lack into overflow, not for vanity, but for purpose. He is positioning you to carry abundance that will not just sustain you, but overflow to your family, your community, and even nations. What once was empty will soon run over, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, just as Luke 6:38 promises. You are not called to survive, you are called to overflow. And that overflow begins the moment you stop calling your lack a curse and start calling it preparation. Heaven has already declared it. Your season of lack is turning into a season of abundance. Chosen one, if there is one truth you must understand on this journey, it is this: your trials are not wasted, and your weakness is not a curse. In fact, they are the very place where God's power is most clearly revealed. What the world calls failure, heaven calls formation. What looks like breaking is often the very process of building. The Apostle Paul gives us this revelation in 2 Corinthians 12:9, when he describes his own struggle. "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." Notice what Paul is saying. His weakness became a platform for God's power to be displayed. What once felt like a limitation turned into a divine invitation for grace. This is why you, chosen one, have walked through storms others cannot imagine. This is why you've faced nights of tears, closed doors, and repeated setbacks. Your path has been uniquely hard because your assignment is uniquely great. Trials are not signs of God's absence. They are evidence of his refining hand. Romans 5:3-4 teaches us, "We glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Every time you've endured hardship, something deeper has been forged within you. Perseverance was built when you refused to give up. Character was shaped when you chose integrity over compromise. Hope was strengthened when you clung to God's promises despite the pain. These qualities cannot be bought with money. They are only birthed in the furnace of trials. Think about David. Before he ever stood before Goliath, He faced lions and bears in the secret fields as a shepherd boy. Those private battles prepared him for his public victory. Without the lions and the bears, there would have been no courage to face the giant. The same is true for you. Your lions and bears, your financial battles, your sleepless nights, your hidden struggles are the very training ground, preparing you for the giants you are destined to slay. And consider Job once more. His trials were unimaginable loss of wealth, health, and family. Yet his story proves that suffering is not the end, but the seed of restoration. Job's weakness did not disqualify him. It positioned him for double blessing. His trial became his testimony, and his weakness became his witness to the faithfulness of God. Chosen one, your weakness is not something to hide. It is something to surrender. Because when you place your weakness in God's hands, He transforms it into strength. Isaiah 40:29 says, He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, He increases strength. The very areas where you feel insufficient are the areas where His power will shine the brightest. So, why do you struggle? Why have your trials been so intense? Because God is producing something eternal in you. 2 Corinthians 4:17 declares, For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. What feels crushing now is actually constructing glory within you. What feels like delay is producing destiny. Chosen one, stop despising your weakness. Stop cursing your trials. Instead, see them as sacred tools in the hand of your Father. Every tear, every battle, every sleepless night has purpose. They are carving into you a resilience, a humility, and a faith that cannot be shaken. When others see defeat, God sees preparation. When others see weakness, God sees a vessel ready to carry His strength. And when the time is right, you will rise not in your own power, but in the unstoppable power of the one who has carried you all along. Your weakness is not your end. It is your beginning. And your trials are not the evidence of God's rejection. They are the guarantee of His refining love. Chosen one, after everything you've heard, the question now is not if you are chosen. It's what will you do with this truth. You have seen that your struggles are not accidents but assignments, not curses but confirmations, not punishment but preparation. You've been reminded that your lack is the soil for overflow, your weakness the stage for God's strength, and your trials the training ground for destiny. So here is the moment of decision. Will you continue to see your financial hardships as evidence of failure, or will you choose to see them as divine markers that you are set apart for something greater? This is more than motivation. It is a summons to rise, to align, to step boldly into the inheritance that has always been yours. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. That is not just a verse, it is your reality. God has already written prosperity, hope, and victory into your story. All He asks is that you believe it, embrace it, and walk in it. So today, make a declaration. Stop agreeing with the lies of lack, and start declaring the truth of abundance. Stop rehearsing defeat, and start confessing victory. If this word has stirred something deep in your spirit, seal it with action. Comment 777 below as your declaration of faith, a public agreement that you are stepping into your destiny. Share this message with someone else who needs to know they are not forgotten. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do it now, not just as a click, but as a prophetic act of alignment. Because every time you return here, you are feeding your spirit, sharpening your vision, and preparing for the breakthrough that is already on its way. Chosen one, your story does not end in struggle, it ends in glory. Your destiny is not survival, it is impact. Your future is not lack, it is overflow. And today, heaven is calling you to step into it fully. The rise of the chosen ones begins now, and you are one of them.